So stupid me being so zealous and saying, oh, wow, this is great. She's interested. I go in, he shuts the door, and I didn't even turn around yet because I noticed on the couch there was no one there. And I hear him double lock the door. And I went, oh, my God, I'm going to get myself murdered here. I hate to turn it into something funny. It's just that it's the truth. He and I were going around the table, and I was always trying to stay halfway around it. And I'm saying, oh, my God, what happens if he jumps up on the table? He'll get me. But he kept walking around, and when he was on the furthest part from the door, I turned around and I opened it real quick and I ran out. And I ran down the stairs. I didn't, of course, couldn't wait for the elevator. He would have gotten me. But that was a horrendous thing. And when I did mention it to someone, instead of saying, oh, my goodness, you poor thing, it was, weren't you told never to go out alone? I said, well, I know that, but, can you have a little mercy for me? I went through a terrible experience. So that's my story of going out witnessing.
Well, thank you, Judith. We all have these bizarre stories. We really, really do. Every one of us that knocked on a door, we were uninvited guests. We had no idea what was behind that door, what people would do, and some people would play jokes on us as well. Who would like to tell another story? Anybody out there right now that might have a story in service? Knocking on doors? Go ahead, say hello to us. Yeah.
Ray?
Yes.
All right. Is there anybody in front of me?
You're on the starting line. Go ahead, Anne-Marie.
Oh, I just wanted to say I was privileged to go out with this one elder, was a very sweet man. And Brother Poindexter, his wife couldn't stand me because she didn't want my child in her car. She was afraid that my child would make a mess on her beautiful plush seat, kind of a stuck-up lady. But Brother Poindexter was a real sweetheart. And he was taking me along with him on return visits, and I felt like, wow, this is such a privilege. An elder had never, ever, and never did again, ever invited me to go with them on any kind of ministry work. And so we went up to a door, and he knocked so softly that I barely heard it, and I was standing right there. And he waits like 4 seconds and says, well, they're not home. And I said, brother, how could they possibly hear you? What makes you think they're not home? The poor guy looked scared to death that somebody would actually open the door. He is an elder, a very well-respected elder, and I'm thinking, if this is how he is in front of me, this poor brother must be feeling really pressured to get in his time. But the one I wanted to share was after I left home. I was living with a friend of mine named Sheila for a little while, and she told me that one day my brother knocked on her door in the ministry, and she said it was the craziest thing. She said every time she thinks about it, she can't help but laugh. She said she has this big black dog, beautiful sweetheart dog, and she named the dog Satan. And, somebody might think that's a crazy name for a dog, but, I was so used to it. I knew the dog for years. He was a real sweetheart. And she said that while she was standing at the door politely listening to the brother and my brother's little schmeal for the Watchtower, she saw her dog in the street. And she said, Satan, you get over here right now. And she said she couldn't help but bust up because both my brother, my fleshly brother in the Watchtower, and the brother he was with, both turned white and ran.
Isn't that something? But you were so used to the name Satan, it didn't bother you, but they just got freaked out.
Well, yeah, they thought she literally was calling for the devil.
Wow.
And he was just a sweet little dog because, I think she was 12 when she got the dog, and, he was a black dog and real sweet, and it was, it was the 60s, whatever. But it's just, you just never know, being in the ministry, it's amazing at how dangerous it is, like what poor Judith went through. I mean, she's just telling the story, but can you imagine, that I've had shotguns pulled on me, I've had dogs sicked on me, cops called on me, but that's when I was selling encyclopedias. But it's the same thing. It's a scary thing to go knocking on somebody's door. You don't know what they could do. And to think that the Watchtower has routinely, over the years, sent mostly sisters, and you know how beautiful and well-dressed a lot of these sisters were, I'm thinking back in the 60s when I remember going out. They were always in nice clothes, nylons, high heels, and they were beautiful. And they're knocking on doors, going into people's homes, thinking, "Oh, they're interested. Maybe we can sit down." Because in San Francisco, we had to climb a lot of hills and climb a lot of stairs. So if we got invited into a home, all we could think is, "Oh, I could just sit down. My feet are killing me." So, we were really being put in danger. And now that we can look back, especially with the story in our mind that Judith just told, this can't possibly be any kind of loving congregation or loving organization to put us in danger like that. And in the 70s, just one more thing, in the 70s is when the little umbrella stroller came out. Remember, the original strollers were heavy-duty metal steel frames? Well, when the umbrella strollers came out, the sisters in the congregations all got them because, it's so much easier to carry around and to unfold and fold up and, push our kids. And these poor little babies were put in these strollers for hours at a time. Well, they got into the habit, some of these sisters would go out in the ministry and leave the children in the car. They'd park it right in the middle of the territory and leave the kids in the car for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours. And they had the cops called on them so many times. But it's pretty sad when you think about it. Thank you, Rick.
Well, no, it is sad. Yeah, well, thank you for sharing your story with us. Anyone else got a bizarre story while in field service knocking on doors? Anyone else?
I do.
Well, let's hear it. Go ahead.
Hi, this is Maddie. How you doing, Rick?
Well, Maddie, doing good.
Okay, it's not always who opens the door, but who's at the door with you. I was at the door with a woman, a sister, and she was one of those. She was anointed, and she just, for some reason, she always wanted to work with me, but she had recently been reinstated. She got disfellowshipped a couple of times for smoking, but anyway, she was of the anointed, and so we're at the door, and she always was. She was one of the dream ladies because she always wanted to be the talker. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so she starts her presentation, and the next thing I know, she has pulled out the Book of Nostradamus from her handbag.
That's crazy.
I know. I couldn't believe it. And she starts messaging about that. I think that was one of my moments.
Yeah, well, that's a strange story. My goodness gracious, that's a bizarre story, but listen, strange things happen out there. Unbelievable. Well, thank you for sharing that with us.
You're welcome.
Well, anyone else got a field service, knock on door, strange, weird story? If you do, speak up right now. Is your time to tell it on the 6th.
Hey, Rick?
Yes, Randy.
I've got one. It's not near as good as or scary as Judith or Emery's or anybody's really, but at the time I was kind of scared, and what was really funny was afterwards what the brother that was with me, what he said. But we have a lot of rural territories, out in the country here in Oklahoma, and we were way out in the sticks and went down this private driveway. It was probably half a mile before we got to their house. The private driveway was, that is. And trees and everything. And I remember it like yesterday. As we turned the corner there was all these motorcycles out there. Like a motorcycle gang lived there, and there was these parachutes hanging from the trees. I don't know why they had them there. They looked like they were using them like swings or something. And what was odd, it was a huge house, and the house was round. Around, I don't see many round houses, but this was a round house. And maybe I shouldn't have been telling jokes, but you know how I am with my jokes. Instead of looking around more, I'm telling jokes. I'm saying, the parents of this house probably are real cruel because they probably make, when their kids are mean and disobey, they make them tell them go stand in the corner, So I'm telling the corny jokes like that. We knock on the door, and then after we knocked, we noticed there's a sign there on the front porch that says, "Attention, a serious biker lives here, and you better not be knocking before 10 o'clock because we despise politicians, people giving out handbills, and especially religious people. And if you disturb us, just be prepared to have your ass kicked." I mean, that's what the sign said. And it's scary. Fortunately, nobody came to the door, and we kind of, crept back and got back in the car and got out of there as fast as we could. And I asked John, I said, what would you have done if they'd answered that door, John? He said, I would have just looked at them straight in the face and told them, hi there, we're bikers. Don't let this suit and tie fool you. We've got our leather underwear on.
Well, but that would be a good answer, really, because you don't know. Some of these people, they mean business. They mean business. Well, thank you, Randy. Thank you. In fact, all you guys listening in tonight, do you have a bizarre story, a strange story, a funny story while knocking on doors as a Jehovah's Witness? Well, go ahead, speak up now if you do. We'd love to hear from you. Then we got JW World News coming up in about 5 or 10 minutes, so stay with us if you're on Facebook. Well, I just want to mention something, too. When Anne-Marie was talking about her story, the witness women, and the men, too, they look good. They don't look sloppy. They are well-groomed. And the women, wear a nice dress and high heels, and they put makeup on. And that can be a problem, too, when you're, going door to door, because you never know who's behind the door. But there was this one woman, a very attractive woman, that was a twin when I lived down in Florida. And she went door to door when she was a young woman. And this man opened the door. Well, come on in. You're Jehovah's Witness? Yeah. So he invited her. She was working by herself. Her sister and the other witnesses were working other houses. But the man said, oh, you're a very attractive lady. And then he locked the door, too, just like in Judah's situation, made her very nervous. She said, wow, what's going to happen here next? And he says, boy, he says, you're really a pretty girl. He says, I'm so glad you came here today. You and I could have a lot of fun. And, that was the kind of conversation that was being carried on. It really spooked the witness woman out. So she didn't know what to say, but he kept talking to her in a very perverted way. And she said, well, you really want to have a lot of fun? She says, I have a sister. I'm a twin. And I have a sister, and she loves to have fun, too. Why don't you let me get her, too, and we can really have a real good time here? So the man says, oh, that would be great. So she says, well, I have to get her. She's outside. So he opened the door, and off she ran. But, that's a true story. And I'll tell you what, that's what I often thought about, too. When my wife was out going door to door, and my daughters, the Watchtower puts a lot of these people in peril. There's no question about it, especially young women going door to door like that. But the Watchtower doesn't care. They really don't care. But that story always stuck in the framework of my thinking. Well, we got time for one more. If someone wants to tell a story of their bizarre service. Yes.
Can I just tell you about something weird that happened about 2 or 3 nights ago here? It's not something that happened to me in the service, but this is weird about field service. It was about 10 minutes. The sun was going down. It was about 10 minutes before dark, okay, 10 minutes. So it's starting to get dark. I'm backing out of the driveway in my car, and I see a group of about 10 to 12 people in this group of different ages, and there was a baby in a cart, and maybe 10 to 12 people of different ages. They're on the corner, walking away from me really slow, all in their own little world, I call it slow strolling along, talking to each other. And I saw a couple book bags across the shoulders, and I'm thinking, that can't be a large group of Jehovah's Witnesses, and it's almost dark. So I rolled my window down. I said, are you JWs? And I didn't get any response. I said, are you JWs? And they go, yeah. I said, you're out this late? It's almost dark. He says, well, that's why we're going back to our car. But can you believe that? There was about 10 or 12 strolling along super slow. It's almost dark. I'd never saw that before, Rick. That was strange.
Well, Don, it's getting near the end of the month, and they have to get some time in,
Yeah, I guess, but you know how the rule was you were never supposed to have more than 2 maybe at a time, so you didn't cause a bunch of you didn't overwhelm the people on the street with big gangs of witnesses. You were supposed to go 2 by 2,
Yeah, no, that's true. That's exactly true. We were advised to do that too.
But such a big group of them, I almost didn't think that can't be JWs, but it was.
Well,
And
no,
it was
that could
almost
be
dark, like they were walking in the dark.
well, that could be scary. That could be really scary, and that's why really the householders today don't even answer the door anymore. You don't know who these people are, even though a person.
But they weren't talking to anybody, Rick. They were just all visiting with themselves and in their own little world, strolling along. I mean, they couldn't have been. They looked lost, like they were just strolling along, lost. So while they're lost, they might as well just talk to each other. But anyhow, that's. I wanted to bring that up.
Well,
that was strange. I had not seen that before.
Well, I'll tell you what, Don, thank you for sharing it with us. I wish we had more time. Do we have time for one more strange witness story knocking on doors? If we do, now's your time to do it. Say hello to us, *1. Okay, if not, we're going to move to JW World News. That's coming up next. Yes.
Oh, do you have time for one more?
Yes, we do. Go ahead.
Okay, it was Mary Poppins. So this Pass the Loyal campaign, my best friend and I were out, and we decided to do like a really long day. I was new to the area, and she had never done a really long day before, so I was trying for like 9 hours because I had like a week to get in my 30 hours for the month. And we went up to this door, and we knocked on it, and we totally heard the people, like somebody behind there. But we were kind of confused, so I put the invitation in the door like you're supposed to, and, all the way in. And as I was putting it in, the person on the other side of the door just, like, pulled it in. Like, it went, like, shoop, and it was like, and we both looked at each other, and we kind of, like, crab walked away from the door, and we made sure that we made it to the end of the block. But once we got to the end of the block, oh, my God, we were doubled over laughing so hard because I went to take the invitation back out because I heard somebody coming, and that's why. But then they like pulled it through the door, and it was so hilarious. Like, oh my God, we laughed for a week. Like, I'll even call her now, and sometimes we'll talk about it, and we'll still just bust out laughing. It is so hilarious. That's actually like a funny story.
Well, it would almost appear to be like demonic. Wow, that thing, somebody pulled it.
It was so weird.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that story, Mary Poppins. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All righty. Well, that is it. You have been listening to the Bizarro World of the Watchtower. And anyways, we'll be doing it again next week at 5:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. All the bizarre things that take place in the Watchtower. Well, we're going to go down to JW World News. Let me disconnect this program. Let's put this into the archives. JW World News coming up next. Of course, that's the news the Watchtower doesn't want you talking about. So let's go to it right now. We want to welcome our friends coming in from Facebook. We got people coming in from the 6 Screens Video Suite. We got them coming in on our telephone line. So let's go right now. Let's get the recording up. And JW World News up next right here on the 6 Screens Telenetwork.
You're on the 6 Screens Telenetwork, earning the reputation of giving all the right ingredients, uninhibited, in exposing the hard, cold facts about the Watchtower Society. And now, the end is near.
Well, we got JW World News coming up next right here on the 6 Screens Telenetwork, so stay with us. Well, we'll skip the soundtrack for now. The computer here is giving me some trouble here tonight, but thank you and welcome in. Thank you all for coming in to JW World News. Of course, that's the news the Watchtower doesn't want you talking about. We talk about it here tonight. In fact, every Saturday night, we're here right around 7 o'clock to bring you all the latest that's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. Well, anyways, my name is Rick Farron. I'm glad you're here with us. We have got a lot of stories to talk about tonight. Every week there's stories in the Watchtower, and we're coming to you live right outside of the hub of the universe, the epicenter of apostasy, right up here in Boston, Massachusetts. And we're glad that you can be with us. We have a lot of apostates up here. And as more and more witnesses are leaving the organization, all of you guys all across America, all across the world, you're going to get more and more people that are apostates in your neighborhood. And we certainly encourage you to meet up with them and talk with them. And they're great people because they've all ate at the same table of poison that you did. But anyways, we got a number of stories. This is my favorite night of the week. I look forward to Saturday night. Saturday night, I get my cheese and crackers at the market basket, my salami, and I'd love to have you guys come in and join me here. This is my night out. This is what I look forward to. And we have a number of stories to discuss here tonight. Now, what I do is I try to, all week long, scan the internet. I try to come up with some of the most prominent stories, some of the most talked about stories, and that's what we'll talk about here tonight. Now, it's very important. It's very important that we can get you guys to speak up and talk as well. We have a number of people on our radio line. We call it our radio line. It's our telephone line. They're listening in via telephone. But if you would like to speak up, if you're listening here tonight on Facebook, or you're listening in on the Six Screens Video Suite, and you would like to speak up tonight and ask questions and talk to some of your friends that are listening in here tonight as well, what you want to do is I'm going to give you a number. Get a piece of paper, get a pencil, and I'm going to give you a number. The number that you want to call is 712-432-8710. That's 712-432-8710. They're going to ask you for a PIN. The PIN is 9925, and by all means, we'd love to have you call in. And if you're a first-time caller, coming in here tonight, we've got a Dunkin' Donuts gift certificate for you. So let's take a look and see what some of the things are that are going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. And, let's see if we can't get in here and see what is happening. I just want to get on the regular news channel here and see what is happening. We've got, just give me a second here. I'm just trying to get to the, no, not that one. All right. Well, anyways, the service report for Jehovah's Witnesses wasn't that good. It was just released this week. And numerous countries are not, they're reporting, but the industrialized countries are not reporting good numbers. The Watchtower, friends, is tanking. We've been talking about it here for a number of years now, but it seems to be really escalating. The Watchtower is really in free fall. A lot of the service report is on JW World News, on JW.org, and the service report is showing that many countries, including the United States, including Britain, they are in negative. There's been no growth at all. And what the Jehovah's Witnesses do is rather than report like negative 2%, 1% negative, they don't do it at all this year. What they're doing is just drawing a blank. They draw a little blank on that. And so you don't even see it, a little dash, and there's no numbers at all. So they don't even want to speak about how bad it has been tanking. So, the other thing is the memorial attendance seems to be pretty status quo, but as far as partakers, the partakers has tanked. I'm not tanked. I'm sorry, it's gone up big time. I'm having some trouble here getting a hold of my report. Anyways, let's see if we can't get in there and get this. For some reason or another, it's not showing up here for me. But I did have a report, and let's go to the inbox here and see what's happening. Okay, for some reason, I'm not getting that. I'm not getting the report coming up. I wanted to share it with you tonight. But anyway, the report came in. It's not good for the Watchtower. It's really not good for the Watchtower. Many of the African countries, they are the ones, Sudan, and of course the Congo Republic, and some of these other poor African countries, they seem to be the only ones that are increasing. But the industrialized lands, they are tanking. and to the point that they will not even say how much it has tanked. Like I say, they just draw a blank on it. Now, why would you think the Watchtower would do that? Why wouldn't they give the real numbers? I'd like to get your thoughts on it. Why doesn't the Watchtower give the real numbers? Why do they just have to draw a little line and not even say how many people that are in the negative category? But it's way down. In fact, even congregations. This is the first time ever in the history of the Watchtower that congregations are down as well. Down by about 1,000 congregations plus from the year, just in the last year. So how are you gonna equate that as a witness? Well, what can you really say? I mean, is that really growth? Of course it's not. What do you guys think? I mean, someone want to comment on this right now? Go ahead.
Hey, Rick.
Yes.
Here.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's funny because I remember when the yearbook was always so exciting in the late 80s when they could document growth. And like I said, time and time again, they were still within that framework of a generation to kind of have a little bit of sizzle to their doctrine. And it was always a thrill to see the numbers growing, even in countries that had people that demographically had good educations. And I just wanted to ask your opinion. The bottom line is, when I became inactive in 98, I noticed a really big difference in and I'm not trying to sound elitist, I'm just being honest. If you looked at the people that were coming in and they started studying and they kept studying and they came in, the caliber of people seemed to be a lot more people that were mentally a little bit off. They were a little dysfunctional. Did you see the same thing when you were becoming inactive?
Yes, I did. In fact, there's a dumbing down, Chris. There's a dumbing down, and I always use the example of a person in the 5th grade. When you're in the 5th grade, you're 11 years old. So I've always used the analogy here of I always called it a 5th grader, or 11-year-older, a 5th grade mentality. When you're in the 5th grade, you don't know if the Easter Bunny's real or Santa Claus is real. You just don't know. You're kind of in between a little boy and a grown-up, or a little girl and a grown-up girl. So what happens is you just don't know. So a lot of the witnesses have a 5th grade mentality. They're acting like a 5th grader.
Right, and I want to just say something, and I'm glad you affirmed what I was noticing when I was still active. The people coming in, I remember in the late 80s, we even had fighter pilots that were active, and they came in and started studying. Now, you get a pedigree of a person that went to college, became an officer in the Air Force, and they're flying these planes that are worth $30, $40 million. That's a special caliber of person that is not only able to do that, but they realize in a moment of war, they're putting their lives on the line because they're the first ones doing the sorties when there's a military situation with Desert Storm, anything in Afghanistan, Syria, in modern days. The people that were coming in at the end didn't have a lot of hope. They weren't financially well off. They weren't psychologically well off. They weren't even mentally well off. And the thing I wanted to say about your points about how the Watchtower changed, I think I remember in the yearbooks when they had a slash, you'd have to go down to the bottom of the page, and there was a little asterisk that said denotes no growth or decrease. So they didn't want to divulge details, especially since, say, 2002, when the internet really started kicking in. So it was their way to kind of hope that the witnesses would just say, okay, things are status quo, there's not a lot of growth, but Satan's busy, and that's why there's no growth in modern countries. But could you imagine being someone that might be living in poverty, and a witness knocks on their door, and they probably have an elevator that doesn't go all the way to the top, and all of a sudden these people are saying, okay, this is Jehovah's hope for mankind. You have a heavenly hope and you have an earthly hope. if someone isn't psychologically or mentally or intellectually ready to really study the Bible and they hear that, do you think if someone is a little bit off, they're not going to cling to the heavenly hope? Because a lot of people with, and I mean legitimate medical problems, I'm not trying to put them down, they legitimately have electrochemical imbalances, they have bipolar issues, they have chronic depression, they have schizophrenia. How many of these people are going to hear this new message and claim they're of the heavenly hope? And that's why the numbers were going up. And I remember elders sitting around with us as servants and talking about the numbers, and they were perplexed because this started happening in the early 90s. The anointed partakers was starting to go up, and the governing body had to know that based on everything they'd said since 1935, that you'd have a rare moment where someone would be chosen to be anointed because someone had fallen away or become an apostate. But I think the reason why, they're not really frank about their decreases is because they want to rely on that. It's almost like looking at a lawyer's document. You see a statistic, but you really don't know what it means until you look at the fine print. Well, that denotes an increase or no growth. But how many witnesses look at the bottom of the page and say, how come in these developed countries there's no growth? But like you asked 15 minutes ago, why are the anointed numbers rising? I think it's because the people they're bringing in have a psychological profile of people that will latch on to the biggest benefit and bang for their buck, because a lot of these people have a medical problem that causes delusion, and what better way to solve that than to be in an organization that promises you an anointed hope, but it goes against the grain of everything that society ever said.
Well, you're right on with that one. I've got the grand totals here. What we're looking at here tonight, friends, and what we are discussing is the 2018 Service Year Report of Jehovah's Witnesses worldwide. Branches of Jehovah's Witnesses. Well, in 2017, there were 90 branches. In 2018, there were 87 branches. Number of lands reporting, 2017, 240, 240 for 2018. Now, here's the thing. I want you to see this, friends. This you can take to the bank in cash because it's meaningful. Total congregations. This is the first time ever that I've been going over figures here from the Watchtower on total congregations went down. That is remarkable. It went down for 2018. In 2017, there were 120,053 congregations worldwide. In 2018, it went down to 119,954. Well, I'd give it around 1,000. So we have a drop. So 1,000, that'd be about, when you stop and think about it, that's at least 3 congregations a day that have closed, if you put it in that perspective. So now also we look at the partakers. These are the numbers that I like to look at. 2017, there were 18,564 partakers, and that number shot up by about 1,000. 2018, 19,521. Now, the thing is, friends, I have to tell you, I know the Watchtower cooks the books. It always reminds me of watching the Business Channel when businesses have to, come forth and explain how much money they made and how great they're doing for the stockholders. And, of course, they they exaggerate and they push the numbers. They try to get away with everything they can. And, of course, that's what the Watchtower is doing here as well. They're trying to get away with everything they possibly can. Also, the number of baptized. This is kind of fascinating to me. 2017, there was 284,212 that were baptized. Well, that number dropped to 281,744, about a 3,000 drop. Now, I mean, that's nothing when you stop and think about it, but it's something. It's going backwards. It's going backwards. This is some of the first indications we're seeing here. I'm even surprised the Watchtower isn't cooking those books, but we're seeing some of the first indications that the Watchtower is kind of in a free fall here. So this is really totally amazing to me. And, I have to say that the report isn't that great. If I was a witness reading this report, I would have to say, geez, I'm spending all this time and nothing is really happening. Why should I even go out and field service? So congregations are down. That's the first time ever. Congregations down. The Watchtower, and now when it comes to reporting the countries, all of the countries being reported here, some of the African countries, 1%, 2%, 2.5%. It comes to the United States, all you see is a dash. All you see is a dash. And what that shows is that's below zero. And they're not even telling you how below zero it is. So that's kind of remarkable. That is totally, totally remarkable. So we are seeing the Watchtower in free fall. I mean, even with their own numbers, and I'm sure these numbers are even cooked. These numbers are worse than they are. But the Watchtower has to come up with some numbers, and they just can't say, okay, fine, everything is hunky-dory. So now let me just give you an example. I'm going to give you an example, and what got me thinking here today as I was going over this. This is more shocking than we think. Okay, let's take a look at some countries here. Let's take a look at some countries. Let's take a look at, for example, American Samoa. I mean, what we have here is a minus 6% decrease. Now, that's not too important to us listening into the six screens tonight, but there's a minus 6, and the reason why I'm using that as kind of a barometer, so they got a minus 6, and then, of course, we have Andorra. I don't even know what that is. Andorra. That has a minus 4%. Now, I'm just going to show you what's going on here. We have Barbados. That has a minus 2. Bermuda, a minus 2. Bosnia and Herzegovina has a minus 4. So now what we do is we move down to the United States. This is what's really got me thinking. We move down to the United States. Let's go down to U.S. here. And what we take a look at here, when it comes to increase, what we see is just a dash. They don't even put a number on there. So how would you read that? I mean, if you're looking at a dash, and some of these other countries are minus 3, minus 4, but then you come to the United States, and they don't even put anything on there. So what do you think is going on there? Do you think the Watchtower is covering something up? What do you guys think? I'd love to hear from you. Go ahead, speak up. *1. I mean, it's crazy. United States of America, they got they don't even put a number there. I mean, how much have they lost? How many publishers have they lost? How much are they tanking? They don't even want to talk about it. Same thing in Britain. In all of the industrialized lands here, Germany and others, I'm noticing, they don't even want to talk about it. Sweden, no, let's not talk about it. We're just going to leave it blank. Switzerland, just leave it blank. Just leave it blank.
Hello, Rick?
Yes, Mia.
Hi. You've got a whole lot of different things going on here, and I'd love to comment on at least two of them. As far as the reduction in congregations, Jehovah's Witnesses are always going to, the supporter people are always going to make excuses, and they're going to say, well, we're just combining, bigger is better, you know how that goes. Right?
Yes.
Do you remember back in the 60s and 70s how they said, oh, we can't allow congregations to be more than 90 people or so because it's too many for the leadership of the congregations to handle? Remember that?
Yes.
But now it's like, well, they're not acknowledging. They've got blinders on, and then they're just like, they're always going to spin it in their own direction to make it sound like, oh, well, we're just combining, we're pulling the languages together, we're getting ready for Armageddon and the new system. So they're doing things, it's just the mind scramble that they do. And then I wanted to talk to you just a teeny weeny bit about the increase in the those who are saying they're anointed. Is that I found out probably about almost 2 decades ago when we finally got internet and we could get in touch with people across the world that were Jehovah's Witnesses or ex-Jehovah's Witnesses, so to speak. And that was when I learned that not everybody in these little countries or foreign countries that you're talking about, I forget, how did you explain that? Like Africa and places like that, that are kind of secluded and don't have a lot of information. They don't get the same information in their watchtowers and literature that people in the industrial countries do. And I actually ran into several people who had no idea that they were not going to go to heaven.
Well, that's something. I mean, that kind of startled you, did it?
Oh, absolutely it did. I was like, it really perked my ears. And even though I had read Crisis of Conscience by that time, I hadn't gotten into Reddit and JW Facts and all of that, to really compare notes with a lot of other former Jehovah's Witnesses. But it just really rocked my boat to learn that the Watchtower is not written the same way for everybody in every Kingdom Hall like we're told.
No, it does differ. In fact, that's one thing I did notice, too, on the trail, Mia, is it does differ. As a matter of fact, even when it comes to talks, like we had a woman come on here tonight from New York, and she said that a person came to her hall and gave a talk, an elder from another congregation, and he was suggesting that, witnesses might have to get a college education. But you're not going to find that in print, and that's not going to be found. These are trial balloons. Well, what they do in certain congregations, and even in some of the literature, they send some literature that's different than other literature to get a trial balloon to see how it's going to go over. That's what they do.
Yeah, it's marketing.
Yeah. What I got going on here, Mia, in fact, I'm glad you're listening in, but what we've got, I'm just reviewing some of these numbers. It's very disturbing. It's not passing the smell test. Something is not jiving here. Now, I'm looking at all these 240 lands the witnesses are supposedly in. Now, I'm looking here, the one with the biggest decrease in witnesses is St. Pierre in Maculan. I've never heard of it. I don't even know where it is. St. Pierre in Maculan. They have a minus 23, 16.7% decrease. Now, why I'm saying it's not passing the smell test, why is this list under United States? It's showing.
How do you spell that, Rick? How do you spell it?
Let's see. Let me go back here. It's St. Pierre, Pierre, and Miquelon. Maculan, I guess? I don't know. I'm not sure.
Marcolini, it came right up.
Yeah.
Or Manigault.
So they got 16%.
Pierre Marcolini is what you said?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. St. Pierre and Macuelon. Miquelon. But what I'm noticing here, the reason why I'm getting disturbed about this is they're not giving the number of witnesses that have left. They're throwing some percentage. They're saying that 0.2% decrease, but they're not giving the number of witnesses that have left for some reason. And why won't they show those figures? I mean, they're scared of doing that? Show the figures. But the Watchtower's not doing it. And then these other countries, Britain is the same way. Britain is showing that there is a decrease in the witnesses, 1.7%, but they will not give the number that have left. Yes, go ahead.
Mary.
Yeah, Mary.
Of course they don't want to talk about the fact that they're failing. I mean, the whole part of their belief system is, the work speeding up and people coming in, and it's so great and so wonderful. I mean, I remember being a kid and going to conventions, and you'd hit this many million, you'd hit that many million, and it was always so exciting. But they don't want, because if people realize that they're actually decreasing, that's going to make people wonder why. Because there's only so much that you can ascribe to death or even disfellowshipping, and that's going to make people curious as to what's off or wrong, or why if this is the truth, why are so many people leaving? And I think that's why they don't want it to be looked at in a critical thinking sort of way.
Well, no, that's exactly the truth, because if you were a witness still, and we're all going out in service and pounding on doors and, wheeling the carts out and spending all this time in the ministry, and then we see absolutely no increase, would that be any incentive for you to keep doing this? No.
Well, let me tell you something, Rick. I looked at this little place that you just pointed out to us. I don't even know why they even bother to mention it, because it is a portion of Newfoundland. It's a little teeny-weeny island that they're acting like this is some sort of big outreach, when they actually don't. We know they don't do any charity. This little island, Pierre Miquelon, that you just pointed out, is barely a population of 6,000 people, and they're even bothering to not include it in the entire Newfoundland. That doesn't make sense.
Well, no.
And the thing is, they're not just cooking books, Rick. They're making everything out like, oh, we've got vast things going on here. And the reason they're doing that, they're not just they're saying, oh, we're making congregations bigger, we're making it more supportive, we're doing this, we're doing that. They're just spinning it so that it's got rose-colored glasses. It's not changing anything. All it's doing is, because they still need the money, they still need the donations, and they're still trying to say, yes, we have growth and we need the money. So keep sending it in, brothers and sisters, and supporting our work.
Well, yes, in fact, Mia, that's what they're trying to do, is really make it look like things are really moving forward. But, the thing is, I did mention Jehovah's Witnesses in countries. It's not countries. It's 240 lands. And then, obviously, you look at that particular land, that St. Pierre, whatever you pronounce it as.
Yeah, I own land, too, in South Carolina. I have exactly a quarter of an acre. So you could say there's 0 Jehovah's Witnesses on my land.
So what they do is, that number sounds good, too. Wow, 240 lands. People are thinking countries. It's not. But, no, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good to me. I mean, I'm not trying to totally be discouraging here to the Watchtower, but I mean, when you come out with the first time ever in history, and you report, in this particular report, it must be worse than it is, because I'm sure they're cooking the books and fudging numbers. When you come out...
Absolutely, and I don't think you have to make them look bad. They're doing a good enough job on their own.
Yeah. Well, I'm finding this is the first time, because I track this stuff. Every year I watch it. This is the first time ever that the Watchtower congregations, Jehovah's Witness congregations, have gone down, to the point of 3 congregations a day are leaving. They're becoming... But there
are more people going to heaven.
And then there's more people going to heaven. Now, what is that all about? I mean, what that tells me is more and more people on the side are looking into Christianity. Maybe they're going to churches and still going to Kingdom Hall meetings. So something's wrong with that too. What could possibly be the dynamics behind that?
They would be disfellowshipped if it wasn't for the numbers. They need the numbers. And that's why I believe in these little countries or lands, as you would say, that, they're giving them a skewed message to get them baptized and say, oh, it's going to be okay for you to partake because you might go to heaven, you just never know. And so they're keeping it kind of on the bland side of their religious belief, but like everything else, once they're baptized, they're in and it's soaked up, they may get the hammer when they're not needed anymore. If they're not producing and they're not making disciples or building kingdom halls or adding people, hey, if you're not needed, that's when you find yourself in a judicial hearing.
Well, Mia, all large organizations, and the Watchtower organization is a large organization, they all know how to tweak the numbers to make themselves look good. I mean, I watch the business reports. I like that. I like the business news. That's CNN, for example. I'm not CNN, but CNBC. And I like to watch that. And then when it comes out for time for them to report their earnings, they play games with that. They really, really do. They know how to tweak those numbers. The Watchtower is no different. They're tweaking the numbers. They're making it, they have to, they can't come out and say everything is great. With a decrease in America and in Britain, that they can't come out and say everything is wonderful, but they don't even want to give you the numbers of people that are leaving. So it's worse than it is. It's just absolutely unbelievable to me that the witnesses can just suck this up and just go along with it all. It just doesn't pass the smell test to me. And
nothing does.
No,
nothing does about it. And thinking people. Then I hope that we do have a lot of listeners. In the that are still attending and maybe questioning, that will listen and take a hard look at what they're getting, because this is not even the religion that our parents knew. And I appreciate your time, Rick. Thanks for letting me express my thoughts.
Well, no, we love to hear you express these things. But, when we've been talking about here on JW World News for the last couple of years, congregations are closing, attendance at meetings are down, service is mostly perfunctory and token, building projects have been tanked. We all know that. These are things we've been talking about. So the Watchtower is trying to make it still sound pretty good, but friends, I got news for you. It's in free fall. Go ahead.
I just even feel like it's not the same religion that I grew up in. I'm only in my 30s, and I see such a difference in, growing up with the older generation, and preaching was, it was taken seriously. You also had fun. Like, you went out all day, you might have run a few errands, but, you talked to people, and you talked about the Bible, and then now it's all about when you go on break, and people sit in coffee shops, and I'm not bashing that, because I know that it's because we're burning out. Like, people that are Jehovah's Witnesses actively are burning out. But, I definitely see that the religion has changed, and it came a point when I got a new job, and I was like, I don't even want to tell people that I'm a witness. And I never felt that way ever before, because I used to be so proud of being a witness, because I knew we had such an amazing reputation, and we were such good people. And then it's like, things changed, and it's like, I didn't want people to, and then I ended up getting in trouble and getting disfellowshipped anyway, but it just blows my mind how much I've seen the organization change probably in the last decade, last 5 years. It's just crazy, and it's almost like everything is this fanatic damage control now.
Well, thank you for saying that, sister. I agree with you 100%. It's a different organization. This isn't your grandfather's organization any longer. This is a strange organization. It amazes me that people still hang in there. Yeah, so you're speaking up here. I mean, you've spoken up before. I've heard you on here. So how long have you been out?
I have been out of the organization for just a couple months. I know I struggled with a lot of doubts for the past couple of years. There were some things that, just little inconsistencies, and I was blessed that my friends never really ratted me out to the organization. Like, I remember when I was pioneering a couple of years ago, and I talked with somebody about how I felt that all religion would be destroyed. Like, we wouldn't have a religion in the new world. Like, we would all just be living life and serving God. And I offended a fellow pioneer with that because, she automatically went into the whole, like, but God always needs organized people. And then I remember, like, I had tattoos that I got while I was a witness because I always felt that was a conscience matter because we're no longer under the Mosaic law. And one of my friends tried to reason with me with one of the newest magazines, probably was like a year ago, one of the newest articles about, how well we're not under the Mosaic law, but we really need to think about how God feels and what his thoughts are on matters. And then I went and I found on the website the question about the Sabbath. Should Christians observe the Sabbath? And I pulled that article up and I said, well, this one says that we're 100% under the law and we don't have to observe this. So which one is it? Is it we're not under the law, but we still should probably observe it? Or is it we're not under the law and it doesn't matter as long as we're loving God first and loving our neighbor as ourselves? And, my friend didn't have a response to that. And then probably about, I don't know, maybe 18 months ago now, I had some really bad bullying experiences in the congregation I was involved with come up again. And I was bullied by elders' kids a lot as a kid, and I grew up in domestic violence with an elder father and all that kind of stuff. And I actually sat down and wrote a letter disassociating myself. Like, I just felt so worthless to God and so unlovable that I thought about leaving the organization. Unfortunately, or fortunately, however you look at it, I chose not to. But I think it's funny. I'm somebody that still believes in God and different things. And I don't know, as the whole progression of waking up happened, like, I definitely felt like a divine being was leading me in that direction. Because once you begin to see things, like, you can't unsee what you see. And I was starting to see inconsistencies and things I was questioning and things I was doubting. And then once I got disfellowshipped, the man who was not a witness that I was involved with started giving me information. And that also really kind of expanded my mind. And, I went to his church with him, and even though I don't ascribe to that denomination either, they had the experiences of God providing money for people, and I was always like, well, we're always taught that God only does that for JWs, like, God doesn't do that for other people. And so just kind of everything happened really quickly. I'm still reeling from a lot of things. Like, I have a lot of doubts, and I feel like I'm at square one with my beliefs, and it's really hard to go from somebody who was born into an organization and felt they had all the answers to realizing, like, I kind of question most everything now, and I realize that if any denomination or any pastor or leader or minister or evangelist is telling you they have all the answers, they don't, and they have a problem with arrogance. But, yeah, it's been kind of, I know I sound really calm and collected today, but there are days where I just break down and cry, and I call them my doubt days, where I doubt God and I doubt why we're here, and I have issues, so I'm not perfect, but the last few months have definitely been quite the roller coaster for me.
Well, thank you. Well, thank you, Sister. Now, you have spoken up here before on the 6 screens, right?
Yes, Mary Poppins. Yes.
Oh, okay, you're Mary Poppins. Okay, good. Well, there you go. No, I have to tell you, really, that, we feel for you, and when people first come out, they're very discombobulated, and they don't know what to do. And you're absolutely right. Everyone's going to try to get you into a religion and join this, join that, and everything else, but you got to be very comfortable, Mary. You just have to take one day at a time. Go slow with it. And nobody really has the answer out there. And I'll tell people this all the time. When it comes to spirituality, a lot of people don't want to leave God behind, but nobody has the true answer. You just pray to God about it and work with Him and believe in him and do your thing. But as far as someone coming along and telling you got to do this, that, and everything else, you want to run as far away from them as you can.
Yeah, I'm working on that. I'm not. I don't know. It's been difficult, and I try to be kind to gentle with myself. Not. It's not that I was one of those witnesses that was like afraid of Armageddon. It's just kind of been earth-shattering when I see what's going on in the world, like, I definitely think, like, the world is ending. If people try to sell this whole, oh, men are going to figure it out, men are going to get it together, like, it's just a rampant pedophilia. I mean, not just in our organization, like that poor little boy that they parade around and had dancing at the gay bar last week, like we're living at the end of something. Like, I think that anybody that's telling you that mankind is going to get it right and that the devil isn't real, I think those people are 100% wrong. And sometimes I think you got to start at the negative to make it to the positive. And I definitely believe that the devil is real and that he hurts people. And I saw that with my ex. And I can definitely tell you that I believe in evil. Now, whether I believe in good and light, that varies day by day. But I'm trying to realize that unlike elders and circuit overseers and Pharisees, that Jesus most definitely, and God himself too, are gentle with people who are doubting and are in pain. So that's kind of what I focus on now, is that that's not the end of the world to have questions or to be in pain.
No, don't you? In fact, Mary, you just work one day at a time, and you can have all the questions in the world. And there's plenty of people listening here tonight that share some of the same feelings you have. You're not alone. We all ate at that same table of poison, and I'm sad for you. But you'll get through all of this. You'll get through, because it's very, very difficult when you first come out. I know you've only been out now for a couple of months, but it's very, very difficult. You're very angry to some degree. Not I don't see anger in you, but you do. You feel a little saying, gee, I've been bamboozled. And then you try to tell your friends and they won't listen, you get frustrated. But you just
They block you and tell you that you're a crazy apostate and you're only saying what you're saying because you're bitter. And I mean, I got into fellowship with the whole intention of going back. Like, I didn't see any of this. I didn't look at anything apostate until I was out, and then it's like everything fell into place. And I just want my friends safe. Like, I worry about what the governing body is going to do to them, and I worry about, are they, at the very least, they to take the money and run, but at the very worst, like, what are they capable of doing? It's obvious that these men don't care about humans. I mean, you speak of anger. I don't necessarily stay in that spot, but, the newest Caleb and Sophia propaganda of the little boy, they made the clothes tight on him. Like who looks at whether clothes are tight on a child? Pedos. People, perverts. That's what a pervert does. No normal person, I mean, you might look at a kid and be like, oh, I bet they're poor, like maybe they don't have enough money. But that's what makes me angry, is the children, and knowing that there are children in the organization that parents are not, you grow up and you're taught, oh, that's my Christian brother, oh, that's my Christian sister, I should trust them. My own brother and sister saw an elder hit his wife one time because they were at that house. Why? Well, because that's your Christian brother. And then the whole, we don't report anything because it'll bring shame on God's name. And I think about the times when I wasn't open in therapy and I didn't go to the police and I didn't get the help that I could have gotten because I didn't want to shame God, because I love him and I don't want anybody to think badly of him. And they brainwash you into thinking that the organization is God. And then even my friend and I, while we both were in the course of waking up, we would talk about that. And I was like they're worshiping the organization. Like, it's gone from any focus on God to this crazy, it's the organization, it's the organization, it's the organization. And it's like, it's just frightening because, when people, look what people do when they feel that way politically. Like, just to draw a comparison, the awful things that somebody will do because of a political ideology. And, now it's like, They cover up child molestation. They cover, and I know my own life. They cover up domestic violence. They cover up all sorts of atrocious things. Like my friend was molested, at least statutorily molested, but taken advantage of by a much older brother. And she was the one that ended up getting disfellowshipped. And it's like any reasonable person would look at that situation and realize that her husband was a pervert and that he should have gotten, before they got married, like he married her to try to cover over the sin. And it's like, that's where my anger does come in. Like there aren't too many doctrinal issues that'll make me mad, unless you start looking at the occult stuff, and that does get me angry too. But, like, children, I mean, if you can't protect children, then who the hell are you? I'm sorry, Rick, I know you don't like profanity, but what the hell? Like, why, like, of all people, children should be protected. Like, I would give anything to have my childhood back. And I will fight to the death to keep children safe. And I can't even understand. And you're brainwashed into thinking that, well, it's just my family. You know, it's just my dad that hit somebody, or it's just my dad that molested me, or it's just my uncle that's a perv. And then you talk to somebody in the congregation and you learn that, oh, well, it happened in the congregation to somebody else. And then you grow up and start talking to people in the circuit or the region now, Or, I mean, like I said before, you know, I moved hours away from where I grew up and still found the same problem. And it's like, why? You know, and if you're, and I told this to my brother the other day. I was like, let's just say that the JWs were God's chosen organization at one time. Let's hypothetically say that. Well, let's make a comparison to the nation of Israel and Jerusalem, and the priesthood got corrupted. And let's say that there was just a family there, and they were like, well, the prophecy is saying this, and the prophecy is saying that, but we definitely see where God's one true people have been perverted. I don't know when God's going to act, but I'm going to go to this other country. And I'm not going to go north to Samaria, and I'm not going to go here because God doesn't like them either. But I'm going to go to this place, and I'm going to wait it out. And I told my brother, I was like, that's kind of where I am right now. Like, it's hard when you've been a Jehovah's Witness, and they vilify kind of all other belief systems. So, and you see the doubts and the issues with that. Like, and I've been pretty open to researching a bunch of things and drawing my own conclusions for once, which has been nice. But, you know, I don't think that Israelite who went to the Sudan, just to, I don't know, pick a random place, that God would have smited them because they weren't part of the remnant that went off to Babylon and they weren't in the country. If somebody was smart enough to see that a problem was brewing, and they were like, I don't know how to rely on God, but I'm going to try this to see if this alleviates the problem, then fine. And it's like, that's how I feel about the organization. Even if at one time they were God's chosen people, which after reading Crisis of Conscience, I don't think so. But even if they were, like, they're not now. Because you can't say that the Holy Spirit allows these sorts of things or doesn't care about these sorts of things. So I would rather not touch anything and see what, you know, take my chances with God if that day comes, than get sucked in to something else, because it's bad. I mean, to know the occult stuff and to know the bad things that go on, and it's not just the Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, there are plenty of other Christendom denominations that trace themselves back to like Freemasonry kind of things and occult things.
Well, that's right. That's why you want to be very careful, Mary. Getting involved with any organization. Well, make sure they're Bible-based. I mean, if you really, a lot of people on here, we get picked on at times for being Christian, so to speak, but about 50% of the people who leave the Watchtower, they don't want to leave God behind. Many just don't want to have anything to do with God at all, but I see that you're a God-fearing woman, so pray to God about it and just move in a direction that you feel comfortable with. And we're proud of you. Well, thank you. That's good. No, we're glad to have you speak up and talk. Thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Well, you're on JW World News. Of course, this is the news the Watchtower doesn't want you talking about. That's Mary Poppins. Well, she just got out a couple of months ago, and she's on the 6 screens tonight. And we have a lot of others on here tonight listening in as well. many active doubting Jehovah's Witnesses. And anyways, you're on JW World News, and I'm glad you're with us. My name's Rick Farron. We're coming to you right outside of Boston, Massachusetts. So let's take a look. Let's take a look and see what's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. Boy, I'll tell you what, we keep losing this, but we'll get it back again, so just stay here with us. All right. How about the Kingdom Hall libraries being cleaned out? This is something now that obviously what I've been reading online, and some people have been emailing me and getting information online about it. Kingdom Hall libraries are being cleaned out. That is older publications of the Watchtower being thrown out.
Hello, Rick.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, hello.
Yeah, listen, Rick. This is the teacher. I'm from Rochester, Michigan. This is the first time I've ever called you.
Well, it's always good to hear from the teacher. Rochester, Michigan. I'm not quite sure where that is. Is that in southern Michigan or northern?
Well, I'm not really sure, but it does get cold. I know that.
Well, you must be in the northern part.
I just wanted that Dunkin' Donuts card. That's what it was about.
Well, I mean, you have to answer 3 questions to get the Dunkin' Donut card.
Okay.
Are you willing to answer the 3 questions?
Sure.
All righty. Can you name where is the Watchtower headquarters?
Ireland.
Well, you missed that one. All right.
Oh,
all right. So
I don't know.
So let's ask another question. Who was the first president of the Watchtower?
Mary Baker Eddy.
Well, no, she was with the Christian Science. I mean, you it looks like you're going to go coffee hungry here. But I'll tell you,
I just want the Dunkin' Donuts.
Well, if you want that Dunkin' Donuts card, I'll tell you what. I'll have you answer 1 question, okay?
Okay.
All righty.
Okay.
So the one question I would have you I'd ask you, what color were Judge Rutherford's Cadillacs?
Black.
Nope, they were yellow. Boy, I wish I could give you that card, but maybe if you can just kind of plead with me and give me a reason that you would like that Dunkin' Donuts card, maybe there's some sympathy in my heart to get it for you.
Well, I don't live in Rochester, New York, so that's got to be worth something.
Yes, well, I mean, we know that Rochester, New York is the entertainment capital of the Northeast. So you're in Rochester, Michigan. That sounds like a pretty boring place.
Oh, it is, yeah. Well, I wanted to stop in and say hello, Rick. So
yeah.
How is everything?
Everything
going well?
Everything's good. That's our good friend Wes. We're just playing a little game here. Wes, everything's good. The coast is clear. Lots of people coming in here tonight. That's really good. Really good.
Yeah, I did just want to say that in looking at the numbers, so because they don't classify countries as countries. In other words, they use the word lands. Then what that ends up being is that you can then isolate areas that are experiencing any kind of growth, and you can say that that particular postage stamp size, area experienced 100% growth because maybe they had 1 member, but now they have 2, and then that allows you to also work that same number into the country. You understand what I'm saying? It's like if you have a retail store and the store has different departments. You can say that, the hardware department had 25% growth, which looks really good. And then you can also take that same number and work it into the store number. and mitigate what it could be every other department in the store is losing tons and tons of money. But you can then work that same figure into the store and make it look like the store is also not doing as bad as it is. And that's what they're doing, I think. I mean, you can describe land any way you want to describe it.
Yeah, well, it's the same way. I mean, Wes, I know you worked in the corporate world, and then, of course, come time to report there to the stock owners, they're going to tweak those numbers. Of course. Yeah, those numbers they're going to do everything they can to squeeze as much as they can out of it. But what really annoys me is why is it that the Watchtower, when it comes to having a decrease in the United States, they're not willing to give us the numbers? I mean, would that be too shocking for people or what?
Well, I think that they're not willing to give the numbers because just like in any P&L, and you've worked in the corporate world, so if you look at it just in dollars and cents, so it's possible to come up with excuses for losses in dollars. And it could be that, I remember at Sears that, every week we had our meeting. Every time we looked at the monthly P&L, it was negative because Sears was going down like a sinking ship, and it was negative. But they would always have some kind of excuse for it. It could be that, July wasn't as hot as it was last year, so we didn't sell as many air conditioners. Or, there was a snowstorm, so the numbers were down. And you can do that with dollars. What you can't do it with is you can't do it with acquisitions of people. So when I really knew that Sears was in trouble was when I started to see the drop off in the number of people getting Sears cards. Everybody had a Sears card, and then suddenly nobody wanted a Sears card. As soon as I saw that, and there is no explanation for that. In other words, you can't look at something environmental or something, something like, well, we moved and that cost us a lot of money. You can't look at that and explain why there's a drop-off in people. And I think that the Watchtower is in the same boat. So instead of putting the number up there, the drop-off of people, they just decide not to put the number up there at all. I think if we knew what the real number was, it would blow everybody's mind. I mean, they're following the exact same corporate model that Sears did. And, the next step will be probably doing what Sears did, which was to merge with somebody. And I wouldn't be surprised to see them merge with somebody.
Yeah, well, that's good analysis. In fact, I watch the CNBC news in the morning, and I like that for the business news. But even Apple, now the last time that Apple, which is the biggest company in America, really, perhaps the biggest company in the world, but the last time they reported, they did not give the figures for how many iPhones they sold. And their stock tanked. I mean, it tanked like 20% down. It really, they wouldn't.
Because they don't have to. And because wise investors will look at that and say, how is it that you moved 1.1 million units a year ago, and this year you only moved 600,000 units? And then that translates into this company's not doing well. And I think it's the same thing. Even if that's not true, that's what it translates into. So they took a calculated risk in saying, we're not going to release a number. Listen, you don't have to release those numbers on a financial report. What you have to release are financial numbers, but it was every single year they would say how many new Sears card acquisitions they had. And you're right with Apple, it's the same thing. Every year they've said how many units they've sold. When they don't tell you that, that's when I think it's time to worry.
Well, that's what I'm thinking. The witnesses should be worrying right now. If you're going to read that report off of jw.org, it's going to be very similar to the Sears and to the Apple report. They're just going to tell you that, we had a little decrease, but we're not going to tell you how much. I think it's important. I think it's important the witnesses know how much of a decrease there was. Was it 5%? I mean, was it 100 people, 200 people? Was it 500 people? Yeah. I mean, just go.
The reality of it is, Rick. I mean, we've talked about this before, but with the information superhighway being what it is, and with people getting information so fast and finding things out so fast. I mean, you tell me, you want to go and knock on a door and say that you're from the Jehovah's Witnesses when an hour ago somebody was looking at Facebook and somebody had posted something up there about all of these sex abuse cases in the Watchtower. Nobody's going to want to join. I mean, it's insane. And I think that's what's happening, especially in the English-speaking world. Anything that used to be under the crown, so whether it's Australia, the United States, Canada, England, anything that used to be under the crown, that message travels incredibly fast, and people pay attention to that kind of stuff. I mean, nobody gets people's attention like someone hurting their kids, and I think that's what it is. And so how would, it's impossible to explain that away. There's no way that you're going to knock on someone's door and say, join our group, and then when they say, I just read about the fact that you hide child abusers, child sex abusers, that anybody's going to talk them into joining. That's what it really comes down to.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I mean, Wes, we've been doing the news here for, going on 15 years, but I can honestly tell you I've never witnessed some of the things I'm seeing going on in the Watchtower. And I've never seen the congregations go down by 1,000. They're losing three congregations a day, if you want to run the numbers on that. So, that is something. So all I have to say is if the witnesses are listening in here tonight, and I know we have a lot of active doubting witnesses, the numbers are really lighting up here tonight. I'm not sure why. I would have thought that, New Year's, people are busy, but they're listening into the Six Queens tonight. And if you're an active witness listening in, check it out. Just don't go by what I'm saying. Go to jw.org. That's their official website. And get the service report. Check it for yourself. And you'll see it. Go to the United States, go to Britain. You're going to see no numbers. So what's going on?
Then use a little bit of critical thinking and think about why is this the case? Think about what has changed that would cause that to happen. That's what it really comes down to. And I think that any kind of critical thinking would point them toward the kind of internal ugliness that's happening inside that organization.
Well, you got it, Wes. Hey, by the way, I want to wish you a happy New Year. Now, I know Jehovah's Witnesses can't say that. As a Jehovah's Witness, I could never say to you, Wes, I wish you a Happy New Year. You can't do that. And, I got thinking today, well, why can't you? What's wrong with New Year's? I mean, why do the witnesses find New Year's such a bad thing? Well, I pulled some books off the dusty shelves of the Six Queens Library. And, of course, the Reasoning from the Scriptures book, page 180, talking about holidays. Well, New Year's is a bad holiday. Let's go with that, according to the Watchtower. According to the World Book Encyclopedia, the Roman ruler Julius Caesar, well, he's the one that came up with the month of January, and he's the one that kind of came up with the New Year's Day coming into existence. And you cannot say Happy New Year if you're a Jehovah's Witness. You cannot do that because it's traced back to paganism. And
no, but what do you do then about the fact that Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year, and so God must put some kind of importance on celebrating a new year? I mean, I could say that my New Year starts April 1st. I mean, and some people used to. That's where April Fool's Day came from. I mean, the point is that God put some kind of significance on the cycle of a year. I don't care when you start your new one, but that's what He does. Yeah. I think that the real reason is just like the reason against celebrating birthdays or holidays. The real sinister reason is because those are the times that people get together with family. And they don't want you getting together with your unbelieving family members and getting talked out of being part of their cult. That's what it really comes down to.
Well, they don't want you to be with friends, Wes. So, but anyways, I'm wishing you a Happy New Year. And regardless of what the Watchtower has to say, but sometimes I think too, the reason why the witnesses have such a hard time with saying Happy New Year is because they don't know if they're going to have a Happy New Year or not. I mean, how can you have how can you have a Happy New Year being a Jehovah's Witness? Well, what really are you looking forward to? More service time, change in doctrines. I mean, the new year coming in doesn't do anything.
Right. The possibility of Armageddon around every corner. Having to look out for the devil around every corner. I mean, you're right. I mean, what is there to be happy about? So.
Well, the other thing too that comes into play. We wish people. I mean, it's kind of like just a figment of speech, but we say to people, "Well, have a good day. I wish you have a good week. I hope you have a good weekend." We say that. That's just normal human conversation.
Sure.
But why can't we say, have a Happy New Year? A witness would be, I'll tell you what, you'd be hard-pressed to get a witness to wish you a Happy New Year,
Yeah.
All right.
No, I know. Rick?
Yeah?
All right, my friend, I will see you in a week.
Thank you, Wes. See you then. Thank you for chiming in.
Bye.
Yes, go ahead, sister.
So, I found your conversation really interesting, and I promise I'll be brief. But
well, no, it's good. We'd love to hear from you.
This idea of a new year is so innate in our humanness, because in the last few years, you've been out for a long time, but witnesses are getting really big about the service year, and all over Instagram you'll see Happy New Service Year or wishing you a good service year. Like September 1st has become the JW New Year, and I think that just speaks to this idea of a new year and celebrating the beginning and marking time, which of course if you read in Genesis, God created those things to mark time with. That I think that it's just such an innate human characteristic that it's something that we do, and even when you're forced into not acknowledging one, you're going to come up with your own. You're going to find your own way to acknowledge a new year, and that's why I think this whole, people are starting to give gifts to each other at the new service year. Like, it's really becoming a big thing. If you see on Instagram and different things, it's just crazy.
It is crazy. It is crazy, and they're buying into more than they should be buying into. The Watchtower, Mary, is dying. And I'm not just looking through rose-colored glasses when I say it. That they are in free fall right now. And I've said here for 15 years, the monkey died, the show's over. Seriously. There's nowhere for them to go at this point. If I was a governing body member, I'd have my head buried in the sand. How can even an elder walk around so pompous, nose in the air, knowing how they're covering up child abuse? And I got a story coming up next talking about that as well. I think we're going to find it very fascinating. Stay with us. You're on JW World News. The Watchtower doesn't want you talking about. Let's take a look at this story right here. I think it really deserves a lot of attention. Well, in fact, it's new rules for child sexual abuse. I'm hearing this from the United Kingdom first, but it will come here soon. And what it is reports coming in here to the 6 screens. Got some information that was given me today that is suggesting the Watchtower and its elders are now going to handle sex abuse cases more privately and smooge up to the victims. But what does that mean? Well, what it means simply is the Watchtower is being really terribly burdened with lawsuits. How are they going to be able to afford to pay all of these? Now, some of these lawsuits, $4 million, $38 million. Now we have one coming against them for $100 million. There's class action lawsuits, one right now in Quebec, Canada. I mean, how are they going to handle all of this? So they got to really hunker down here and come up with some type of a game plan to kind of divert all of these lawsuits. So now in the UK, it's being suggested from these reports that are coming in here that the Watchtower is now colluding with the elders to try to make somewhat of a, well, kind of smooge, if you would, kind of cozy up to victims of child abuse. In other words, as soon as they hear it, don't report it to the police. Let's keep it very private. Let's go to the people like a shepherding call. Let's go and kind of cuddle up to them and, well, we're very sorry this happened, and we don't want to bring reproach upon Jehovah, and let's try to work through this. And together as the elders and the Watchtower, we can work together. This is just absolutely, this is not helping at all. As a matter of fact, it's continuing to make things worse. So these are the newest rules that we now have got reports coming in here suggesting the Watchtower do. Kind of like shepherding calls. Oh, someone was just abused you. Go out and talk to them. Well, sister, we know this happened, but, and, even more subtle, more cozy than it was before. The Watchtower now wants the elders to reach out. Now, let me tell you something. If you're an elder listening into this program tonight, you better start looking for the exit door. This organization is going to put you in peril. They are going to make your life very, very treacherous. You could lose your home. You could lose your family, really, over all of this. Stop and think about it. They're putting you on the hook. If you're an elder listening in tonight, look for the exit door at the Kingdom Hall or step down immediately as an elder. They're asking you to break the law. They're asking you to, let's not report this. Let's just cozy up to the victim and see if we can't silence them. Make sure they're not going to sue us. That's what's going on. And friends, I'll tell you what. If you're an elder today, I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to tell you you're crazy. I'm not going to tell you your elevator's not going all the way to the top. But I'm going to tell you something. You are putting your whole family at risk. All of the things that you worked for all of your life, all of the things that you've tried to make a well-rounded out family with, beautiful wife, children, a home, a car to drive, that could all disappear. That could disappear overnight. All you need is one good lawsuit against you, elder, for covering up child abuse. What do you think about that? Any comments at all? If you're an elder out there, what would you say? If you were an elder, let's hypothetically think about this. If you were an elder, would you step down if the Watchtower is asking you to, let's just keep this more private? What do you think? I'd like to hear from you. *1. Would you keep it private? Why would you want to be an elder? My goodness gracious, I can't believe all of this. I really, really can't. I'm not trying to super embellish this. I'm not trying to in any way overemphasize all of this, but I don't have any idea why a man, other than getting his ego massaged, getting his feelings elevated, I have no reason why a man would want to reach out and be an elder in the Jehovah's Witness organization. All right, maybe we don't have any comments on that. We'll move to the next one if nobody wants to talk about that. Let's move to the next one. Let's see what else we got here on JW World News. Of course, that's the news the Watchtower doesn't want you talking about. Well, we talked about this a little bit. The Kingdom Hall libraries are now being cleaned out. I got reports coming in here to the 6 screens today that this one particular Kingdom Hall has been given the orders to toss out all the old publications of the Watchtower. Now, I don't know why they even call it a library. A library is a place where you can go in, you can read the old books, you can take the old books out, but Jehovah's Witnesses, according to, I forget what book it was in, I don't have it right here right now, I can't seem to pump it up here tonight, but it was in one publication that Jehovah's Witnesses are not to take books out of the library. You can go in there and read them. Maybe you have a public talk, or maybe you have a talk of some type that you need some information information from the records of the Watchtower and the library, from these books, some of the newest books. They say you can take information from and do your talk. But why is it now that the witnesses are being instructed to go in and clean some of these older publications out? Why is that? And many publishers are wondering why. Well, why do you think it is? That they don't want you reading some of this old information. This old information is very indicting. Come on, let's get real with this. I don't know. Times I try to soft pedal things. I try to explain things, but I don't know what's to explain here. If the Watchtower is saying throw all these old books out, why would they do that? This is their history. They don't want the witnesses reading it, period. Well, where else would you go with this? I could fluff it up a little bit. I could, kind of dress it up a little bit, but there's nowhere to go with this. They do not want you reading the old publications, period. Now, I've got all kinds of people, they always question me, well, Rick, that's not true. We still have the old, divine Plan of the Ages books and all the Russell books in our library. Friends, they're going slow with this. They cannot make it look like a news bulletin. They got to slowly get rid of all of this. They don't want you reading all of these publications. If they did everything fast and every congregation got that notice, then obviously there'd be, witnesses scratching their head. And even this particular congregation, I got this information sent to me today, this information about them cleaning out the old publications. A lot of witnesses in that hall, according to the information I got. They're wondering, well, why should we have to throw that out? And they don't want anybody taking it. Instructions were given to the elders to toss it out, but make sure the publishers do not get those older publications. Why? Because there's information in there that could indict them. What do you think? Star one. I want to hear from you.
Yeah, Rick, it's Chris.
Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, on that point, I thought it was always fascinating. I remember touching on this last week, just in terms of the fact that you go back to some of the publications going back to the turn of the century, and the Watchtower had articles about aluminum cookware being something that was inspired by Satan the devil. I don't know if you remember that. Do you remember that?
Of course I do, yeah.
Okay, sure. But here's what I thought was fascinating, because I always touch back on the point that when I came in and when I studied, I remember studying the two Revelation books from the 60s, the big thick red ones, and then you had the new Revelation book and the Daniel books. The bottom line, the Watchtower claimed in 1919 they were cleansed and Jesus gave them the thumbs up. Okay, if that was the case, every publication they had issued from 1919 should be put in a vault and looked as being golden and been available to every witness. And now we're looking at 2018. That was 19 or 99 years ago. They were approved. If they were approved, why have the libraries sacked out and you couldn't go back and research it? What a shame that they were so screwy in not only in the fact that at the time they were doing it, sure, it was getting converts in, but this is something I've always talked about. When you get into a spiritual dimension where you're going to be looking at decades and centuries later, you're going to have to answer for things that happened decades and over a century ago. Why would they hide it? And the bottom line is they're embarrassed by it, and they'll go back to, well, the light gets brighter. Well, how light did the light have to be in 1919 for them to be approved, as opposed to every change they've had since 1919? How many tweaks did Jesus have to give God's organization to still be approved in 2018? And if they were approved, you would still think they would have the transparency, because the one thing, even though I'm not an active believer, I appreciate about looking at the Bible, you can still look at the Bible and see the sins of David and the sins of Solomon and the sins of Peter when he denied Christ. And according to the context of the scriptures, that's going to be an eternal testimony, and it doesn't take away from the fact that David's going to be a partaker in God's promises in the future. I can realize that, but the account of David committing adultery will always be there, and at least when the Bible was recorded, and here we are thousands of years later, that record is still there, and the account holds up just to say this is what happens when people make mistakes, but the Watchtower doesn't have that transparency. At least the Bible does. They have to erase history. It's like the Nazis burning books.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right, and that's exactly what I thought about when this story came up. Burn the books. Burn the books. And that's exactly what's going on with the Watchtower. But they're doing it very subtly, Chris. If they came out and sent a letter to every congregation around the world, get rid of the books, what would happen is the witnesses would start scratching their heads too much. But little by little by little, get rid of them. Get rid of these books, because these books show how false we are.
Sure, and it's a shame that their mentality, since I left and since you left, their only mental angle with any questions from a person that's saying, okay, I looked this up on the internet, what's your thoughts? Well, go to jw.org. Well, back up just a minute. If someone's knocking on my door and they're 50 years old and they've been a witness since they were 15, I want your thoughts. I don't want the website's fault or thoughts. What are your thoughts, and how do you feel about things that progressed over the decades? And it's a shame. And I was gonna share a story about something that happened when I had a garage sale here about 2 months ago. This fella came into the garage Sunday afternoon. He had a bow tie on, and I might have shared this. And he was talking about different things we had in the garage and music instruments and kids' toys. And he said, hey, I just wanted to share something with you. And we were like, that's fine. And he said, I wanted to give you this public notice about figures about bullying and what we can do to protect young kids in school. And he said, the figures are right here. And he folded this weird pamphlet with only one page showing and said, you can look this up on your own. And he left. And I was thinking, that was kind of odd. I take the pamphlet after he left and opened it back up to the other three folds. It was a J.W. Orr tract talking about the organization, but I thought, in my day, when you knocked on a door, you made it clear, I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses. I'm here to talk about Jehovah's Kingdom, and we're going to talk about this one subject that has a Bible theme related to it, and you can go and look up scriptures and do it. But he left the house and didn't even say who he was or why he was there. And this goes back to what I think was being said about an hour ago, when the whole theme and the whole regiment of the witnesses has changed so much in 20 years that they have to go into a garage and not even have the balls to say, I'm one of Jehovah's Witnesses, we're stressing Jehovah's Kingdom, and we're going to talk about something that affects people, and Jehovah's Kingdom will solve that. He had no answers, no scriptures, and his presentation was really silly. So I just wanted to make that point.
Well, that's a good point, Chris. And I also mentioned on my Facebook promo tonight, will you be able to come on tonight, say around 11?
Oh, sure. That's fine.
Okay, good. Yeah, it's I call it Burning the Midnight Oil with Las Vegas Chris. So you'll be on with us at 11 o'clock tonight, okay?
Yeah, I have an interesting analogy to build off of, so I look forward to it.
Excellent. Well, looking forward to it as well. Well, anyways, you are on JW World News, the Watchtower doesn't want you talking about. And we've got a lot of people coming in. You're on Facebook with us. You're on the Six Screens video suite. And you're also on our radio network, our telephone line. Now, if you want to call us up, if you're listening in on Facebook, you're listening in on the Six Screens video suite, and you want to call us up and ask a question or just voice your concerns, you have to dial 712-432-8710, and when asked for PIN 9925. I'll give it again. 712-432-8710 and ask for PIN 9925. Wow, we're so glad we're having a good night here tonight. We do this every Saturday night. We try to give you the latest that's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. A number of stories here tonight. But one other story, too, in fact, a couple more stories we're going to go here tonight. I want to let you know about this particular story, Sherry Shepherd. Well, do you know who she was? She says that Jehovah's Witnesses broke up her family. I believe that, Sherry. Now, who is Sherry? Well, Sherry Shepherd is the former co-host of The View. Now, you know that woman's program on, I think it's on NBC, I'm not sure, but the woman's program, The View, she's the former co-host, and she says she was forced to stop talking to her father, whom she dearly loved. Well, that was written in Christian Magazine today, and she was questioned by Jehovah's Witness leaders for her talking to her father and going to church. So, I mean, friends, I don't know how long, how much more bad press the Watchtower can get, but when you read articles like this, it really shows you how hard the Watchtower is on people. You want to speak up, or someone's on there right now? If not, I'm going to have to mute you. Hit star 1. Hit star 1. I'm going to have to mute you here. I'm going to have to go in and do this. This is very difficult. Okay, let me mute everybody here because we want people to hear all of this. So let me just mute them and let's go back. Keep it nice and clear. Here's what you do. The protocol here on the Six Screens is if you want to speak up, you hit star 1. And then if you're done talking, hit star 1 again, and that will mute you. And that makes my job. Friends, I would have a breeze here doing this program, but I'm doing the program, I'm trying to keep all the background noise down. And that's what it is. Phones are left open, unmuted, then we hear all kinds of stuff, and it kind of muffles everything up. So if you can really help me, I plead with you, I ask every Saturday night, star 1 to talk. When you're done talking, hit star 1 again, and that will mute you. Then we won't hear all this noise. Make it so much easier. So anyways, this woman says that Jehovah's Witnesses broke up her family. Sherry Shepherd, maybe you know her. She recalled having 2 different lives as a teenager. Well, maybe you had 2 different lives as a teenager too, growing up in the Jehovah's Witness religion. Maybe you went to the Kingdom Hall, and that at the same time, you went to the hall, then you went to the school dance, and you did everything else that wasn't worthy of being a Jehovah's Witness. But many witnesses lead a double life, and Sherry said she lived a double life. But she talks all about in this article how the witnesses really destroyed her family, and she loved her father, and she couldn't talk to her father, and it was really a terrible thing. And the article really shows how bad the Jehovah's Witness organization is. Now, when you read stories like this, obviously, it really makes you connect with a world that maybe a lot of people never heard about. A lot of people, they just think that Jehovah's Witnesses are good people, and they're Christians, and they come to our door, and they're trying to teach us the Bible. Well, not so fast on that. I'm so glad that all these people that have been attached to the witness world are now coming out and speaking up. And that's what you have to do. I mean, I've been saying this for the last 15 years coming on the Six Screens. If you don't speak up, if you say, well, what happens when you do nothing? What happens when you do nothing? Nothing happens. So that's why I've always been an advocate of protesting. I've always been an advocate of speaking up and letting people know that you are aggravated. Let people know that the Watchtower is a fraudulent organization. Other than that, it goes nowhere. But you have to let people know. You got to protest. In fact, I say that all the time. Get out there and protest. And now all of a sudden the protest fever is catching on. Protests work. Look what's going on in France. My goodness, all the people were protesting against higher taxes and gasoline taxes, and they couldn't afford it. And you get all these people coming out protesting. I got news for you. What did France do? They eliminated the tax. So that's what you do. You have to come out and protest. And I mean, it's not for everybody. But I tell you what, I'm looking forward to the day when we get 200, 300, 400 people out protesting against the Watchtower. That would work. You know, we get 70, 80, 90, 100, but if we can get a couple of hundred people, if we could ever get a couple of hundred people out protesting against the Watchtower, that would be it. You get national attention. You get the papers writing about it. Why are these people protesting against the Watchtower? Because they're breaking up families. Why are these people protesting against the Watchtower? Because they're hiding pedophiles. Why are these people protesting against the Watchtower? Because people are dying because of not taking blood transfusions. All of these things. We got to come out. Come out of cyberspace. Come out of cyberspace. Organize a protest. Do it in your neighborhood. If it's even 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people at a Kingdom Hall is good. And eventually we can all mass together, like we did last year up in Warwick, where we all came together and protested. That was great. We had 53 people. Boy, it was good. It was a good turnout. But if we could have got 153, 253, it could have made a real difference. We could have had the New York Times up there, the New York Daily Times. We could have had Boston Globe, Chicago Tribune. We could have had all the newspapers. So that's what you got to do. And don't think that protests don't work. We've been doing it for years, and they do work. And we get the numbers, it can work even better. So anyways, any thoughts at all? If you guys want to speak up right now, hit *1 on your telephone pad, and that would be great. If you don't, well, let's go on and talk about more things. I mean, that's what we do this program for. I mean, I'm going to continue the program here at the 6 Screens, but we do have to get people speaking up. If we don't get people speaking up, then maybe that's it. I mean, maybe it'll be the end of 6 Screens. But, you know, I do this every Saturday night, not complaining, just explaining. We have to get people to speak up. If we don't get people to speak up, then I'm saying, gee, why do I do this? Well, what is this all about? What is it all about? Why would I continue with this? So when you guys speak up, it refreshes me. It gives me the energy to continue on. So let's take a look here. Let's see what else is going on. Sherry Shepard, we talked about her. Someone want to say something? Go ahead.
Hey.
Go ahead.
Hey, Rick. It's Chris.
Yes, Chris.
Hey, so I just wanted to say, you know, I was over at the apartments where I live, and these witnesses popped their cart up across the street, literally in the bushes. Like, they're standing on the sidewalk where there's absolutely nobody that lives on the site. It's all trees behind them. I'm like, so I went over and talked to them, and I was like, why are you ladies standing in the bushes? They go, we're not. I'm like, nobody walks over here. There's nothing but trees beside you, and there's nothing on this side of the road. So they're just getting their hours and standing there. So I told them, they're like, well, we're out here preaching. We're the only ones that do this. I said, well, Mormons, you know, preach too. And they were like, well, they don't go door to door. And I'm thinking to myself, well, neither are you. You're just standing in a cart, you know, so what's the difference? And actually Mormons do go door to door, but, you know, and I, you know, when I discuss with them all the time about how they're preaching the good news and fulfilling this prophecy, I was like, well, Seventh-day Adventists came around the same time as the Watchtower did, and they have more members than you do, and they preach. That doesn't necessarily mean their message is true. So it doesn't matter how big their preaching work is. If it's not preaching right, they're not preaching right.
Well, that's a good point. That's exactly right. So, Chris, I'm glad you're calling in with us tonight. So you're a former witness, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I've talked to you before on here.
Yeah, I left in 2015. 2014, like end of 2014, 15. I mean, I loved being a JW. I didn't know that they were having pedophile problems when I was in there. I didn't know any of that stuff. I loved the people. I loved the Kingdom Hall. I never had any issues. But when I know a lot of people probably don't know me or they see me sometimes online. But once I read The Divine Plan of the Ages, I was out. I was like, you mean I'm not going to die because I'm not part of an organization, or stuff like that.
So that was the clincher. That's what got you out, The Divine Plan of the Ages.
Yeah, and I mean, we still study that book on Sundays, but it's completely different than what they're teaching. Like after Russell died, Rutherford turned it into join us, and if you leave, you're going to die and no resurrection. That's not what Russell taught. Yeah. He even had a quote about beware of organizations. It's wholly unnecessary. And as soon as, we even had a discourse one time at one of our conventions about the parallels between after the apostles died and after Russell died, how someone rose up, took control, told them there's no salvation apart from them. You can't understand the Bible without them. And it was fascinating that they took the same path they claimed Christendom did. Because someone posted something online the other day about how they call the Watchtower their mother, or something like that. It was from like a 1957 Watchtower. That sounds a lot like what the Catholics did.
Well, yeah.
They don't, and I forgot to tell you, when I was talking to those two witnesses across the street, she said, well, Catholics would understand that their religion is not true because look how many pedophiles they have. I'm like, wow, this lady really is clueless.
Is that what she said? That's crazy.
But,
she has no idea. Jeez.
Yeah, but I can't fault her for it because when I was in the society, I didn't know it either, so I can't really fault her for it.
Well, Chris, it's just amazing to me that the witnesses keep their blinders on. They're not seeing all of this. But eventually I think they will. I just can't imagine with the internet today, the information highway, with the TV programs, radio programs, all of this, how the witnesses are missing it. This is a magical mystery to me. I can't believe it.
Well, she was like me. I didn't have cable for the longest time. I just watched Netflix and DVDs, so I didn't know anything was going on. And, and the other lady, they were really nice ladies, and she goes, well, our doors at the Kingdom Hall are always open. Like, I showed her some of the old watchtowers and that we still study them, and she said, that she's like, well, our doors are always open, and the other lady says, no, they're not anymore. I was like, why? She's like, well, we lock them because people interrupt the meeting. So that was confirmed.
Yeah, in fact, many Kingdom Halls have been told. In fact, I think it was a national letter. I can't say that for sure, but many Kingdom Halls have been told to lock the doors after the meeting starts because of people coming in and trying to let them know that they are a false organization,
Yeah.
So, anyway, where are you from, Chris?
Jacksonville, Florida.
Oh, Jacksonville, Florida. That's a great place. A lot of witnesses in Florida. A lot of witnesses down there.
Oh, yeah. I haven't seen any Kingdom Hall closures here. I've gone into a few, and they're just packed. Like my old Kingdom Hall at Ponte Vedra. I went over there, and it was completely full, and it wasn't because they're like the only one out there, so they're either getting a lot more members or, they haven't closed down anyone because that's the only one in that area for a while.
Yeah, well, what it is, of course, in Florida, it's a transient, so you get a lot of people coming down from up north, and the congregation gets boosted in the winter,
Yeah, well, another couple I was talking to in the same spot a couple weeks ago, they were from New York. They just moved here.
Yeah.
But it seems like the Kingdom Halls are growing here, I can tell you that.
Well, no, in fact,
another one side by side.
Well, I was, in fact, I lived in Florida for 10 years, and obviously the winter, it's a transient state. Florida always is going to have a good witness population. It's not a good dichotomy to, let people know how many witnesses are and how the growth is happening, because Florida is a different place. A lot of people move down there for the winter, and they spend all winter there, and that's exactly what happened with our congregation. Come winter, all the snowbirds came down, and wow, look at this, everyone's here. Then, of course, come April, they all left. So, but anyways, you're a good man, Chris. I want to thank you for checking in with us tonight. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, that's Chris from Florida. But don't let, don't let the good news in Florida about the witnesses frighten you. That's a safe haven for witnesses. Florida, California is another one where there's lots of witnesses. Pennsylvania, these are states that they still might be doing pretty well. Hey, what do you have to say? Anyone want to say anything before we're coming up to the Marines program here on JW World News, the Watchtower doesn't want you talking about. So let's see what else we got here. We might have some more news stories in the queue here. Well, we talked about Sherry. We talked about this, that. We just about got it all. In fact, what I was thinking is I think it's kind of good that the Watchtower has constantly told the witnesses to wait until Armageddon to have children. So a lot of witnesses don't have a whole lot of children, so that's a good thing. So they're not bringing them into the so-called fraudulent truth. These are things that we were taught when we were witnesses. Wait till Armageddon. Don't get a career in this system. Don't go to college in this system. Maybe you can even wait to not get married into the new system. So in many respects, I'm kind of glad that a lot of witnesses didn't bring more children. And I got thinking about that today. I'm kind of glad the witnesses didn't bring more children into this debased organization. What a fraud when you stop and think about it. And I just can't believe, friends, what I was even looking up today is with all of the human intelligence increasing. In human intelligence, I think it's safe to say is increasing because of Google, because of the internet, because of an iPhone. You have the world in the palm of your hands. You can find out answers. You can get questions answered really quick. How? By just checking out things on the internet. And I'm wondering what is going on in the witness world. Why are they not seeing this? And this is really baffling to me. Obviously they are told that, don't check this out, don't Google that, don't Google that. But curiosity killed the cat. All of us have a little bit of curiosity, don't we? You want to see things. You want to look things up on your own. And I'm sure the witnesses must be doing that to a certain extent. They're hearing things. You got Leah Remini, you got A&E, you got W5 out of Canada. You got all these books being written about the Jehovah's Witnesses. You got radio programs. You have internet websites. You have podcasts. You have live radio programs like we're doing here. Is all of this just oblivious to the witnesses? Is this just flying over their head? I can't totally believe this. I have relatives that are witnesses, and I'm beginning to think that curiosity killed the cat. I'm beginning to think that many witnesses are kind of taking a look at what's going on. They're looking on the internet. They're watching the Leah Remini program. They're watching some of this stuff on TV about the witnesses. I can't believe they're all just turning their head to all of this. And many of them are waking up and smelling the coffee. And even if they're not waking up and smelling that coffee, as we say, they're at least starting to think. Because how I think this whole thing is going to collapse, it's like water dripping on a rock, a little bit at a time. So what we have to do is we have to plant some flaws. How small they may be is even fine. But little flaws, and that's what we do here at the Six Screens. We hope that witnesses listening in can just get a little bit of information, even though they might not agree with all of it. If they can get just a little bit of information, okay, that's one flaw. And then one flaw leads to another flaw, and another flaw to another flaw. And that's how most of us got out, didn't we? We saw one little thing, then another little thing. So that's what we have to do, is try to just plant in the mind of the witness one little flaw. And then it can lead to another flaw. If they see one thing, then they're going to have the energy. They're going to have the adrenaline to go forth and check out some other flaws. So that's why I think programs like the Six Screens and even some of these internet websites, JW Facts and others, they can help witnesses just to get that little flaw that leads to another flaw. That's what got me out. One thing led to another, and now I'm here as a big old apostate talking to you every Saturday night. And don't let the word apostate fool you. We talked about this a little earlier. A lot of people write me here at the Six Screens, Rick, we're not apostates. Don't call us apostates. That's baloney. We are apostates by definition. What is an apostate? An apostate is one that stands off from the teachings of an organization. Isn't that us? Don't we stand off from the teachings of the Watchtower? That's what the definition of apostasy is. As a matter of fact, even in the Shepherd's book, if you looked it up in there, that's exactly what it says, an apostate. It gives a definition of the apostate. It says an apostate is one that stands off from the teachings of the Watchtower. So let's not take the word apostate as being bad. I know a lot of you guys think, well, apostasy means going against Christianity. Not always. Apostasy is going against anything that's being taught. As a matter of fact, even if you take the word Protestant, that word comes from protest. Protest. That's where the word Protestant comes from. It was Martin Luther, that nailed he didn't want to be a Catholic any longer. He nailed that notice, to the door of the Catholic Church. Did not want to be. He was protesting. He was an apostate of Catholicism. So let's not, take the word apostate and beat it to death and don't use it. I get that all the time. But please, we are apostates. I stand firm on that. We are apostates of the Watchtower. We are against their teaching. We stand off from their teaching. Well, you've been on JW World News, the news the Watchtower doesn't want you talking about. We got Semper Fi come up here next. Boy, I'll tell you what a rockin' awesome program we've had here tonight. We've been on since 5:30 with Bizarro World of the Watchtower. And that'll be back again next week at 5:45 next week. Bizarro World of the Watchtower. Now, we have more programs coming up tonight, so stay with us if you're on Facebook. And if you're on Facebook, when JW World News is over, Facebook discontinues. But if you want to continue on listening into many of our programs coming up next here on the Six Screens, go to sixscreensofthewatchtower.com and scroll down to where it says how to connect with the telephone line and how to connect with the video suite, and you'll be able to come in and listen to the programs in its entirety tonight. So by all means, give that a shot. And we want to thank all those folks coming in from Facebook. We want to thank the folks coming in on the Six Screens video suite and all those who've spoken up tonight on our radio network. We really appreciate all of that. And we always want to let you know that you're important. You're very, very important to me. You're important to all the hosts that come on this program. You're the one that makes the program. And when you speak up, that's what really helps so many witnesses. I could sit here and talk all night long, and that's great. But when you guys speak up, it makes all the difference in the world. So I want to thank Mia. I want to thank Dawn. I want to thank Chewy. I want to thank Mary Poppins. There's so many people. Anne Marie, Chris, the two Chris's coming in here tonight. All these people. It makes a difference when you guys speak up and talk. People listen. And they say, wow, all these people were connected with the witnesses. Now they no longer are. You can help so many people you don't even realize. So by all means, if you have an opportunity to speak up on the Six Screens, we encourage you to do that. And we got Semper Fi coming up next. And talk to Dick. Talk to him tonight. He's a former ministerial servant. He's got his program coming up here. Talk to him. Let him know that you really appreciate his efforts on coming on here every other Saturday night. So we want you to keep standing tall. We don't want you to ever give in, up or out. We want you to keep waving that flag of victory. And the last one, leaving the Watchtower, by all means, please turn off the new light. Semper Fi coming up next right here on the Six Screens Telenetwork. stay with us. I got to get in. I got to disconnect this program, and we're going to start the new program, which is coming up next. By all means, stay right here. Well, in many ways, when you leave the Watchtower as a former witness, you're kind of like the Marine. You're a fighter. You got freedom. You're fighting for freedom. And that's exactly what you do as a former witness. And we're so glad to have a former Marine on with us tonight and a former Jehovah's Witness. His name is Dick Borgie, former ministerial servant as well. And he's on with us tonight. Dick, are you there with us? You're there with us, Dick? There you go, Dick. You're ready to go, yeah? You're ready to go, Dick, yep?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to Semper Fi. We're absolutely thrilled to have you. And this segment here that we're going to be touching on is a subject that 4 months ago we did a segment on. It was about disfellowshipping. Who gets disfellowshipping, why, and what is the society's reason for disfellowshipping somebody? It's quite interesting. My co-host tonight will be Martha, and she's been on with me many times in the past, and I know she's handling a phone call from her son, so she might be on her next 5 to 10 minutes. Anyway, last week when I was